All right, welcome back to the SSL Family Dad channel, and today we're going to build some simple raised beds for the kitchen garden. All right, so today we're going to go through building a very simple raised bed. This is built with all materials you can buy off the shelf at any lumber store, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever you have nearby. And it's just super easy to put together. It doesn't take long at all, and it's going to last you a very, very long time. They're very stable, very sturdy, and they're perfect for square foot gardening or whatever type of raised bed gardening you want to do. So a couple things that you're going to need to build this. I'm using 2x6s here. These are 8 feet long. Of course, you can do 10 foot, 12 foot, 16 foot if you want to. But 8 foot's a pretty good sturdy design, and they're also the least expensive. So you can go with a pretty easy and pretty inexpensive raised bed this way. So you're gonna need a bunch of these. So we're gonna be doing a raised bed that's gonna be 11 inches deep. And so we're gonna use 2 2x6s stacked on top of each other. It's actually cheaper to get 2 2x6s than it is to get a 2x12. And so we're only a ½ inch difference there in height, and it's a little bit cheaper that way to buy the 2x6s. These are all untreated, so there's a whole discussion that we could have about treated versus untreated, and will it rot, and how long will it take, and how long will it last, and all those things. But let me just say this. I've used pallet wood for many years that's untreated, and those raised beds have lasted 3, 4, 5 years and still keep going, and they haven't rotted through yet. So a 2x6 is a lot thicker, and I have a feeling that these will last probably 10 years before you need to replace these. You can use treated wood. I've read lots of articles about treated lumber. The copper azul or whatever it is that they use is supposedly, you know, the amounts that could possibly leach into the soil and could uptake into a plant are so minuscule that you know, you probably get more toxins by just walking out your door and breathing the air. So there's probably not a risk there, but I chose to go with just untreated lumber for this. That's up to you on what you want to do, treated or not treated. Now, you will also need a 2x4. Now, in this case, I am using a treated 2x4. This is going to be for the corners, and I'll show you how this goes together in just a moment. But the treated 2x4, these are kind of be sticking in the ground, and so I wanted to do treated with this. This is going to kind of hold everything just perfectly stable and steady and make sure that all the corners are tied together tight. So I'm using 2.5 inch deck screws for this. These are the Starbits, the T25s. I use these for everything, and I highly recommend these screws for all your projects, no matter what it is. But we're going to be using a bunch of these today, and so you will need to pick up a small box of screws. Other than that, a couple hand tools. I'm using a chop saw here next to me. Of course, you can just use a hand circular saw or whatever you want to use just to make a few cuts. Other than that, we're ready to start putting this thing together. So first thing we're going to need to do is just make a couple cuts. We're just cutting the end pieces, so we're going to be 8 feet long on these raised beds. That's just the length of the boards that we bought, so we don't need to cut those. But the width of the bed is going to be 2 feet. Now we want that to be the inside diameter, so we've got 2 nice square foot sections for growing in the inside, and so we're going to actually cut our end pieces at 2 feet and 3 inches. So we're adding the 1.5 inches of the width of the boards on each side to the total, and so our end pieces are going to be 2 feet and 3 inches. That'll give us 2 feet on the inside. So we're going to head and cut those. Now for one raised bed here, we're going to need 4 of them because we'll have 2 on each end that will stack on top of each other, and so we'll need a total of 4. I'm building 2 of these beds, so I'm going to go ahead and cut 8. A little trick when you're cutting a bunch of these is just to get your first cut made and then use that as a template to cut the rest. All right, so next thing we're going to do is take our treated 2x4 here, and we're going to cut that into 4 12-inch sections. So we're going to need, these are going to be for the 4 corners of the raised bed. Just a little tip, this 2x4 I'm using here is super warped, and actually this is, because these are just the legs, this is something you could get out of the cull cart at Home Depot. A lot of times right there at the entranceway, they'll have a cart full of curved and warped pieces of 2x4 and other things that's 70% off, and so you can save quite a bit of money by just getting the junk wood and using for the legs. All right, so we've got all of our 2x4 legs cut, we've got all of our 2x6 end pieces cut, so we're ready to get this laid out and start screwing things together. All right, so I'm using the second layer of 2x4s. I just set them down flat on the ground just so I have something flat to build on. And I'm actually, you'll see that the legs are sticking all the way down to the ground. And so that's going to give me an extra 1.5 inches that these are going to stick out of the bottom of the raised bed there. So we want those to kind of be the legs. There's a couple ways to do this. I've seen a lot of videos online where you just screw your screws right into the end grain of these, the long sides. The problem with that is that you get a really weak connection, especially as that wood starts to get soft from moisture and things like that. The end grain is a really bad place for screws. They don't really stick there very well. And so these legs in the corners are going to allow us to get a really nice secure corner by screwing into that leg from both sides. And these things are going to be rock solid once we're done. So our box is pretty much put together and it is nice and solid, which is awesome. But I don't want the, once we get a lot of dirt in here over time, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the outside of the center of this bed, and you'll end up getting a bow effect on the bed. It won't look straight. And so we want to make sure that we firm this up. And so I've cut 2 more 12-inch legs from our other 8-foot 2x4 there, and then one 24-inch or 2-foot piece, and this is treated as well. Now I'm going to put this straddled between the 2 2x6s, so we're going to tie these together tight in the middle. This will also make sure that if we have any warps in our 2 2x6s that they don't separate over time and look goofy, so we'll tie them together real tight. So we're just going to put this right in the center at 4 feet. And that is one solid raised bed box right there. This thing is not going anywhere. It's not going to move. It's not going to bow. It's not going to warp. And it's going to last many, many years. So the next thing we're going to do is actually go get this put in place, and we're going to use these legs to level it all out. So we might need to dig some out. We might need to put a little dirt under one side or the other, and we're going to level all these legs out and make sure we're level this way and this way so that our box can sit on any uneven terrain, and you can just kind of set it in there and get it nice and level. So no matter what your yard slope is, you can have nice, level, and straight raised beds. And that is what you end up with, a nice solid raised bed that's going to last many, many, many years. These things stay nice and tight and nice and straight. They don't bow, and nothing's going to come apart or anything like that as these things, rot over the next 10 years. And these legs really help keep this thing stuck in the ground. So with the legs sticking out 1.5 inches, down into the dirt, and this thing is just nice and firm. It's not going to shift back and forth or side to side. These legs are down about 1/2 inch from the top, and so once we fill these up with dirt, you might see just the top of this, but most likely we'll just kind of dust it over with dirt and you won't even see those. Now you could sink this down even further if you wanted to, and maybe even stick it down 2 or 3 inches from the top and have the legs stick out further in the bottom, or just cut your legs shorter, and that would be totally fine. I like to do it this way just because we get the most amount of surface area in contact with all of the boards in the corner here, and it just keeps things real nice and tight. And that is all it takes to build a super simple but also super strong and long-lasting raised bed. And if you follow this kind of basic construction, you can build any size you want. You can build a square, you can build rectangles, you can build them longer. You can build these things 300 feet long if you want to. Just make sure that you put a support in the raised bed, maybe every 4 to 6 feet, across the center there, so it holds everything tight. I've used this very similar process to build free raised beds using pallet wood, and it works just as good. Having those legs that stick in the ground on at least all four corners, and if not in the middle also, just really ties everything in and keeps everything nice and straight, so they look good for a long time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the quick how-to today, and maybe are inspired to build some raised beds of your own. I've done videos in the past on why I think raised beds are the best way to garden on a small scale. You're not going to be growing, 100 acres of corn or anything in raised beds, but small scale kitchen gardens, raised beds work so great, and they're just easier to take care of and lots of benefits. I'll actually link to a video that I did up there in the card system in that little eye in the corner. You can click on that and see some related videos. And I did a video on soil mix that you can use to fill these. It's very inexpensive, and it's an awesome soil mix that we've used for years. So you can fill your raised beds for very cheap. And also a video that I did about the raised beds. What are the benefits? Why should you do raised beds instead of just planting stuff in the garden, planting it in the ground? So don't forget to hit the thumbs up button on the video today, guys. I always appreciate that. And if this is your first time here to the SSL Family Dad channel, please subscribe. Love to have you follow along, and check the description for a link to a great place to get your seeds to start your garden with. 10% off, and they're only 89 cents a packet. So check out those seeds from MI Gardener. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.